Hello. Today's going to be a little different kind of video, and might be tough for some to grasp at first, but I will say you can look into it for yourself. There is proof all around, so don't take my word for it, just like in any of my teachings. Test it against the scriptures. What I want to talk to you about today is other books that are connected to the Bible. I fully understand that the Word of God, those 66 books, are divinely inspired. Okay? But I also know that there were other books and ancient texts that are connected to the Bible that, even though they might not hold the same weight as some of the sacred scriptures, they can be very important to read, and they don't kick against the topics in the Bible. Not only that, they're referenced. So if the Bible mentions books, I want to know what those books are about. Let me first off, in Joshua 10, it talks about when God made the sun stand still. It says, do you not know what it says in the book of Yashar? Well, the book of Yashar is either the book of the just ones or the book of the upright ones, but it's mentioned there and in 1 Samuel or 2 Samuel 18 as well. Okay? Now, I want to look at Numbers 21:14, where it talks about the book of the wars of the Lord. And also in 1 Chronicles 29:29, it mentions the book of Samuel the seer, Nathan the prophet, and Gad the seer. Okay? So there were ancient texts that writers of the Old Testament did reference, and it might not be important to everyone, but I like looking into things like that because sometimes they shed light on some of the more misunderstood scriptures. I specifically want to look at the Apocrypha. Now, there's a lot of debate on whether people should pay attention to the Apocrypha and which books are in it. Let me just say this. In 1611, when the King James Version became the definitive Protestant Bible, all the way up until 1885, when it was removed, the Apocrypha was included. Those 14 books. Okay? And actually, ever since the Septuagint in about 150 BC, these are part of many Bibles. 1st and 2nd Esdras, Ecclesiasticus, Tobit, Judith, 1st and 2nd Maccabees, Wisdom, Baruch, Susanna, Song of Three Children. What am I missing? Bell and the Dragon. Might be missing something. But those 14 books were part of the Bible for a very long time. And the reason why I have that main picture, and the reason I have this right here, is this is an 1800 King James Bible, one of the neatest things in this house. And what you see is there are spots where Jesus' words he did quote from the Apocrypha. In that Matthew 23:37, when it talks about you stone the prophets, or you try to stone the prophets, and I gather my children underneath my wings like a hen gathers them. Direct reference. There's many spots in the New Testament that are cross-referenced, and that's what's neat about old Bibles like this. You have those cross-references. Now, the common misconception that Martin Luther removed the Apocrypha from the Bible. Now, it's not that he removed it. He moved it. He says it's not on par with the sacred scriptures, but he said they were useful to read. Now, there's many spots. And one particularly neat spot is when you got to look at the first 5 books. You got to look at the Torah and look at the foundation for the Jewish holidays. Okay? You have the Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, First Fruits, Feast of Tabernacles, Feast of Trumpets. What am I missing? Pentecost, and one other I'm missing. But point is those foundations of those Jewish holidays are all found in the Torah. However, we have one that's talked about in John 10:22, and it talks about the Feast of Dedication, the only winter Jewish holiday. What is the Feast of Dedication? Well, you look back to First Maccabees, and it talks about specifically the roots for Hanukkah. That's where we get the basis, and the historical context for what's talked about in John 10. When we look at the Sermon on the Mount, and Jesus refers to in chapter 6, verse 1, verse 6, and verse 15, I believe, or 5 and 16, talks about alms, prayer, and fasting being basically pillars of righteousness. This is a direct reference to the book of Tobit. Okay? There are spots throughout the New Testament where Jesus not only quotes the Apocrypha, but the things line up pretty neat. I think this is amazing. Not only 66 books, but looking at 80 books there, but also the other ancient texts that are important for understanding some of the Bible. I think this is an amazing thing. And you look at book of Tobit, for instance, and let me ask you this. Who would you say, if you had to name a couple archangels, who would you name? The good guys. You would probably name Michael and Gabriel. They are the only two mentioned by name in the Bible. But a lot of people would say Raphael as well. God has healed is his name. Gabriel is strength of God. Michael is who is unto God, or who is like God. But why do you think that Raphael is an archangel if you only believe stuff that's specifically written in the Bible? Ask yourself that. He is specifically referenced in the book of Tobit. But also there's a lot of discrepancy of what people believe on which archangels. I tend to look at the ones who watch, at least the 6, being Uriel, Gabriel, Michael, Raphael, Raguel, and Sarakiel. There are other texts besides the Bible that are important. I'm not claiming divine inspiration. However, I do know the Apocrypha, if you look into it, could mean obscure or hidden or out of sight, or the Greek and Latin, secret. You think that's coincidental? That it just so happens that it was named that all the way up until the Bible, all the way in the Bible up till 1885 when they removed it. You think God knew? God knew the plan, obviously. He knows the beginning from the end. These are obscure books that might be tough to swallow, but there's truth in them. Look at Ecclesiasticus. It's called the Book of Sirach. It's just more wisdom like in Proverbs. There's some really neat stories, whether it's the Maccabees and the Maccabean revolt, or the ending of the book of Esther. Book of Tobit's an amazing story. Ties up with Hebrews of be careful to show kindness to strangers, because some of you have entertained angels unaware. It's pretty something. It's neat to think how what the word says about angels. Aren't they all ministering spirits sent to those to inherit salvation? It's awesome what the Bible is. It's amazing, the salvation issues tied into it, but also if we open our eyes, we see that there are other books out there that do have importance, that really we can learn some things from.